Testing, testing. Mic check. Microphone check. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Of course, the audio would cut off randomly. It's so interesting how I just did that. Testing, testing. Perfect. Okay, cool. Now, let me change the link to this so I have the right link. Hopefully it doesn't just cut off randomly like last time. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea what happened. But what's new when it comes to streaming? I feel like there's always some kind of issue. So always some kind of unexpected issue. But let me repost this link for people that are joining in. So we are here at stream number 2. See, copy, and let me paste into here. Okay. So I have no idea where I left off, but was it? Hi, David. Hi, welcome to the stream. If anyone, for everyone new joining in, if you have questions for me for photography, videography, any questions at all, please leave them down in the comments below. I'm actually just gonna dive into the questions right now. Lastly, I was just talking about the Unsettled cinematic that is going to be released tomorrow. Marvel Champions, a very, very extended review. Right now, the audio for that review is like, it's like around an hour. I think I'm gonna bring it down to like 20 to 30 minutes by then, but a very, very extended review for Marvel Champions coming this weekend. So 2 back-to-back epic videos I'm super stoked on. And then videos I'm working on. So videos I'm working on. Steam Up. This one is about a dim sum feast, if you haven't heard about it yet, from Hot Banana Games. I've finished the cinematic and the photos and everything for it. We're all done. We've wrapped up for it. And it is, I'm telling you right now, it is an incredible game. It is going to be on my top 5 most anticipated list for the rest of the year. I can't wait for that game. It's coming out in October. So we can't wait to show you what we did on that. Tiny Ninjas, I'm working on social media promos for that. I actually did a bunch of social media promos already that I haven't released yet. More so because we're waiting on different embargoes and everything. Hi, Rice, or Riz, sorry if I mispronounced your name. I am doing fine. How are you? Yeah, exactly. I have no idea why the audio just cut off. It was just insane. And then for those that are joining in, there are 2 other games I want to mention that I am working on. One is with Z-Man Games. That is going to be the next big cinematic. And the next tutorial is going to be from the Dice Tower. On the Dice Tower for Furnace. So those, just so many big videos that are coming back to back to back. It is a busy quarter, busy month. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to some questions that I have for you. Again, for those that are joining in, I'm taking all of your questions. If you want any help for your photography, videography needs, or studio questions, I'm taking them now. So leave them down in the comments and I will get to them. Hopefully before audio cuts off and hopefully before my camera overheats. Right now, it looks like everything's okay. So let me know if you can't hear audio. And I think I just have to restart the stream. That's like the only fix to it. That's the only thing I really did. And unplug my mic, but that did nothing. Okay. So one of our patrons, Chewy, asked a couple of different questions. So the first one is, are you self-taught in photography, video editing? Did you take any online courses? So, oh, how funny. Yeah, exactly. So David and Chewy, you guys are asking the exact same question. So Chewy mentioned that whether or not I'm self-taught, and to answer his question directly, yes, but I kind of want to approach it from like a philosophical sense, in that I feel like no one is truly ever self-taught. Like even if I'm self-taught and I kind of like figured out things on my own, there are always people involved, whether I knew them directly or not. And I'm gonna get to that in a second. But I did not take any formal classes. The first experience I had with photography actually was I used to staff for weddings. So I used to just set up tables, chairs, all that good stuff for weddings. And there were a lot of photographers that, of course, were there every single event. And I would kind of just follow them around casually, and then I would kind of just make jokes to my friends, like, "Wow, really? Like, they're getting paid to take a bunch of pictures, like, really, to do all these weddings and stuff?" And one day, I just followed a photographer who took a really nice macro shot of a ring, and I just saw him putting a ring on like a bonsai tree, and I went up to him because I was so curious. Like, can I see? Can I see what you did? And he showed me this picture, and it just blew my mind because the photos, like what you see in a camera and like what photographers see, is just a completely different perspective on the world, and that really like took hold of me from that point on. So from there, I kind of just did it casually with an iPhone 6 Plus. I just took photos with that because by then, like, iPhones were amazing. They are like even beyond what they were back then. Evolving from the 6 Plus, of course, we're now at what, the 12 or 11, something like that. So then I got to this one video. I was just casually interested in photography by then. Wasn't anything serious, and I got to a video from Peter McKinnon, who he posted a video called a $1,000 camera versus a $5,000 camera. And at the time, he had around 10,000 subscribers, and or like 10 to 30,000 subscribers. And I watched it, and it was just so interesting. Like, that video just was really captivating. And I graduated from school, had finished up a master's, and my parents got me this camera as a graduation gift. And from there, the rest is history from there. So who I learned from, I actually wrote down all of my my mentors. So like in person, who I know like in person would be Lauren from Playful Soul Photography. You'll see her on my kind of poster all the time. But I learned a ton from her. We used to work together in industry for science, and we both shared a passion in photography. And I learned a ton of stuff. Still am learning a ton of stuff from her, especially from like the entrepreneurial business standpoint of photography. She's taught me a lot for that. But in terms of like video making skills, so she was strictly photography, but for like video making, everyone else, I have a whole list for you that I'm gonna link in the description box after this video that you can check out if you aren't following these people already. Peter McKinnon mentioned that for literally everything: photography techniques, Lightroom editing, the whole works. So Peter was the biggest inspiration for me for not only getting a camera, but for also learning all the tips and works of the trade for photography. Brandon Lee and Aiden Robbins, hands down, some of the best cinematic storytelling I've ever seen. I have learned so much from them, not only for like fancy transitions, but really like if you break down their videos, I feel like a lot of their style, like I've tried to learn a lot from them and like captured the way they tell stories and masking transitions into my own cinematic showcases today. It's very, very modern. They have very, very modern techniques, very, very rich in storytelling, and of course, seamless transitions. Parker Walbeck, he's from Full Time Filmmaking. Amazing for like gear recommendations, breakdowns, a ton of like filmmaking techniques. Lizzie Pierce and Chris Howe, they are married now, but they have two separate channels. And then recently, I also learned that, well, I didn't just learn, but I learned a lot of like the business side of photography from them as well. So all this to say that most of my mentors were from people on YouTube, you know. And then lastly, like this is only a handful of people that I've learned from, but these were definitely some of the most impactful people. Becky and Chris, the whole studio, like what you see now, is pretty much derived from what I've learned from them. They have been amazing mentors indirectly. Like all these people have been amazing mentors indirectly. So all this to say that yes, I was self-taught, but truly no, because I learned everything from from everyone. I kind of just took bits and pieces from different people and what they excel at, and I kind of just molded it into what my skill set is today. So that is a very long-winded question to both of your long-winded answer to both of your questions. Hopefully that answers everything. But next question from Rice or Riz. What was your first main camera rig you owned? Oh, my first camera rig. I'll grab right now. This is the one camera. Hello, Joshua. Joshua is one of my best friends. But so this is one of my original camera rigs. I had this set up for 2 years, nothing else, strictly this. And it is the Canon 80D along with the 35mm f2.0. This is a prime lens, and all I shot was with prime. So this is my very first camera setup that I had for 2 years, and I did not upgrade anything until I made like profit or like projects from this camera alone. So I didn't upgrade a single thing until I could actually no cover. I know, sorry. Actually, this is the second stream. The first stream, the audio died out. That's why there's no cover now. Or do you mean like a lid on my cover for my lens? I usually keep these off because I usually use them all the time. That's why. But yeah, had that set up strictly until I could upgrade to the 1DX, which was a professional full grade, very, very expensive camera. That camera back then was $5,000. So it took me, that amount of time to save up for that camera. And then recently I also switched over to all mirrorless. Actually, I'm only keeping these as replica, as a very expensive replica, but not as expensive as the 1DX. I wanted to keep the 1DX, but I feel like all those funds for, just staring at the 1DX in like a little case can be used for something much more meaningful and much more impactful for the channel. So I use that money actually towards a mirrorless setup. Everything that you're going to see from here on out is full-on mirrorless. I'm shooting with the Canon R5 along with two main lenses. One is the 85 f1.2, and the second one is the 16 to 35 f. I forget what it is, 1.8, the new RF lens. So those are my two lenses. Oh, thank you, Hugh. I appreciate that. Appreciate that so much. Okay, so here's the next question from Chewy. Out of the 10 photos I have on my wall, which one is my favorite and why? Oh, okay. So I'll go ahead and grab them real quick. But of course, I'll do one per row. So this is an obvious one. Of course, my fiance, she actually doesn't like taking pictures. So I was really happy to get a photo of her when we were on our trip. And I love this photo because it just brings back so many wonderful memories of when we traveled together to Banff. This was such a fun trip that we had together. And I love this photo that I took of her. In the little sparse moments that I can take photos of her. And my second photo. Ooh. So the reason why I'm doing it per wall, per row actually, is because the first row is strictly landscapes, and the second row is all board games. So for the board game side, I would have to say that this one is by far my favorite photo from that row, and it's honestly the story behind it. So this was taken in a pool in our old place. So we had a pool, and it was a freaking mission to take a photo of this one. Let me tell you. Actually, all those photos that you see back there were all taken at home. They were all actually done in fish tank, like this plastic fish tank that I had. This is the one I did outside. And now that you hear that, so it's outside, right? Outside introduces wind. So nature had a full-on ordeal with me this day. And like when you see this picture, all you see is like very calmness, right? You see very calm attributes. You just see this clean, no chaotic sense at all. Better way to say those words in some other phrase. Anyways, I'm slurring my words here because of how excited I am to tell the story. So for this shoot, the only idea I had was I wanted to take a floating board game picture. That's the only idea I had. So I grabbed my camera and I saw this little piece of wood along with some root components. I grabbed a couple of root components, but this one really stood out to me because it matches with the water, of course, since they are otters. And then I always like to introduce multiple components. So then I just grabbed one of the resources, which was like pretty much just like a blue marble. So I grabbed these two and I put it on this random wood chip that I found in the garden. And I put it in the pool. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so cool if I manage to get it in the right light, because it was right during sunset. If I get it during the right light, you can't really see sunset because I mostly kind of edited more towards the blue side. I had a couple of alternate versions of this, but so I had to capture it right during sunset. You can actually see a tiny piece of the camera sticking out right there. I left it on purpose. I didn't Photoshop that out. And I kind of just stood over the side of the pool and I just waited. I just waited for the right moment. No joke, took 1,200 like 75 photos, something like that, above 1,000 for sure, 1,270 something photos just to get this one. Because this one, despite seeing it like it's a little bit out of frame, it's not, was perfectly in frame. The angle was exactly what I wanted. I wanted it slightly angled off centered a little bit. And then I wanted water to just creep up a little bit on the wood chips here. And also no shake, because the wind introduces shake. The components were falling. This floats, this doesn't. So I had to dive into the pool and get all these marbles that were like sinking, or that sunk all the way to the bottom by the end of the shoot. This was a very, very difficult shoot, despite how it looked. So this, I would say, is definitely my favorite photo from the 5 that I hung, more so for the story that went on behind it. David says, my wife is a professional photographer and she also uses Canon. Yes. So I've always shot on Canon. I've roughly played around with Sony. Right now, in terms of like the photography world, Canon and Sony are like just at it. They have been producing some very, very insane stuff. Not to like downplay any other camera companies like Fujifilm, Nikon, and so forth, but those two have been going at it, producing some really, really amazing things. But I've only shot Canon, so I can only truly speak for Canon. And I don't ever see myself switching, because Canon, the reason why I love Canon so much is because of their user interface. What I value most in photography is speed, because one of my biggest pet peeves is when you lose a moment. So I can't stand that. And Canon cameras are quick, they're fast, and they're easy to use. On top of that, their colors are they're just chef's kiss colors. So I love Canon colors. However, I saw a recent video lately that Parker posted comparing Sony and Canon colors, and I did get it wrong. So there's that. They're very neck and neck in terms of top tier camera companies at the moment. For those that are joining in, if you have any questions for me, please leave them down in the comments below. I am here for you today. But other than that, I have a couple more questions here from Chewy. Will you create a video on what's in your go bag for different photography scenarios? I never thought about that. Usually I kind of just do one bag for what I'm carrying now. But yes, I would love to do that. I would actually have maybe only 2 scenarios. The first one would be for board game shoots. Actually, maybe 3, because I don't really consider, so I would have 3. One would be for shoots when I do portrait photography for sure. I actually just got some straps instead of like a backpack, so I'm using that now. So that one would be a full-on setup. The second setup would be the Santorini houses and a bunch of other things that I can include, when I take shoots for product photography, or more so for lifestyle photography, because it's actually not in my home. I take lifestyle photography at my sister-in-law's house because they have a beautiful kitchen. And the third one would be when I'm doing creative shoots, which I haven't done in a very long time, but hopefully I want to do one when I announce some really big news to the channel soon. So that will probably be all in one. But yes, I would love to do that. If you had to give... next question. If you had to give advice to yourself when you were just starting out, what would that be? I would definitely say like three things. The first one that comes to mind is definitely contracts. Speaking to my past self, and for anyone else who is interested, if you are doing this professionally, if you are getting paid for making content, I highly, highly suggest that you do not ignore this point, and that is to make contracts. You definitely need to do contracts. Not only does it keep you it keeps you safe and all of your assets kind of just for you, but also for deposits and stuff, because sometimes there's big delays in like payments and everything, and of course we're all trying to make a living here. So definitely do contracts. That's very, very important. It also kind of outlines for both you and the publisher, or whoever you're working with, your client. It outlines a very, very clear guide of what to expect on both sides. So for you, when you're like writing out a contract, it really details and makes sure that you are sticking to that timeline. And that's what I'm doing now. It's something I wish I did before, for sure. You ever consider doing a video talking about photo editing? Yeah, I definitely want to dive more into that. I've done a few on the channel. Like I think the last one I did was about was definitely about, I think, the ice tank. I did one about ice, that photo right there. I did one about a breakdown for that, and I edited that photo. But I definitely would be down to do that if that's something that you all want to see. I usually don't post it because people don't really talk about it. So I figured, people didn't want to see that. But yeah, if you want to see that, of course, I'd love to do that. Pair it alongside with some presets, some photography presets that I have coming out. That'd be awesome. Next question. So here says, oh, sorry, I had two other points I wanted to make to you. So aside from contracts, prioritize what you actually need. That's something I would tell myself, my past self for sure. So I feel like a lot of beginning photographers, myself included, back then, we automatically lean towards the lens, the camera body, those two things. I feel like that's our ultimate go-to when it comes to upgrading stuff. But had I known what I know now, and know that I'm going to go into video editing as well, I would have easily prioritized getting a nice light, which honestly is not much compared to like the lenses that we buy nowadays. So lenses, what, $2,000-$3,000 nowadays, and a really, really good light that lasts years is $1,000. Sounds like a lot, but it pays for itself very, very quickly once you start doing professional shoots. So a light was probably one of the first things that I upgraded. What that I would have upgraded. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you so much. The second thing I would have upgraded would have been audio. So as you can see here, I'm using this janky audio that I used to use while playing games and everything. I actually got a brand new podcasting setup, which is why I revamped this a little bit delayed too as well. I got a brand new Shure SM7B along with the cloud lifter, and I'm just waiting for pretty much the microphone to connect to the computer. So that one is going to, I play tested this microphone setup, and honestly, the audio sounds so good. I don't know why I didn't invest in one sooner. And honestly, I was expecting this microphone, the Shure SM7B, to be like in the thousands, like maybe 2,000 minimum. It's $400. Like I should have gotten that way early on. So number two, second thing I would have told myself early on, definitely prioritize to what I actually need, lights and audio. And then we can work on the different lenses later on. So definitely would have told that to myself early on. And then lastly, this one I think is specific to me, unless let me know if you experience this as well. But before committing your own videos, think about the amount of time that it's going to take before actually executing the plan. That is like one of my biggest weaknesses. It's like, think about what the amount of time and the amount of effort that it's going to take to actually make whatever idea that I have in mind. Like I never seem to consider that before actually executing an idea. And I don't like to leave things half finished. So if I start something, I'm going to finish it. The video that comes into mind, actually someone just commented on this video the other day. It's an older video. This one was a Legend of Korra gameplay. It was like an idea that I had to combine skits and kind of like cinematography and gameplay. Did I say gameplay already? But yeah, so gameplay and skits and cinematography all together. And that one took me 3 days to make. 3 days to make a gameplay video on the Legend of Korra because I had to switch. I don't know how other people do it. All the other YouTubers do it when they are making multiple characters for themselves, like they're filming themselves, having multiple characters, while also like keeping them in the same frame. So I would be here, right? And then I would only film like one character on this side. And then you leave an invisible line here. So that way when you edit video, you can just edit a little mask here. And then I would go to this side with like a different outfit and like talking to this character. Like that takes so much coordination. If you have never tried that for your own videos, you need to try doing a self-talking video because it is one of the most difficult videos ever. You have to not only coordinate the dialogue, but you also have to coordinate your expressions, and there's just so much going on. And props to all those YouTubers that do that because it is hard. So that's why it took me very, very long time to make for that. So number three, so number one, contracts. Number two, prioritize what you actually need. Number three, before committing to making a video, make sure you know the amount of time it's going to take before executing the plan. Those are the three tips that I have for my past self, for all of you. And then, so Josh asks, have you ever played around with film? No, actually, I have never played around with film. I saw Brandon Wolfel. If you don't know who he is, he's like my ultimate role model for a photographer. You need to check him out. Brandon Wolfel. Again, I'll leave all the links to all the creators to talk about down below. But Brandon Wolfel has been playing with film recently, and he is just a wizard, a full-on master at his craft. Of course, you can see from like his portfolio and everything. I would be interested in doing it though. It would be fun to see how you can manage lighting, and because you can't edit film, It's like a one-shot take. So I would love to see how that plays out when you are like doing it in sunset and stuff. So that'd be really fun. Can't wait for that. That would be really fun. I'd be down to do a video about that. For those of you that are joining in, let me know your photography questions in the comments below. I'm here for you today until 6 o'clock. And our next question is, when did you know that photography would be your career of choice? Oh, that's a really good question. So, photography career of choice. I think the biggest one in my current state always has to be when the work is reflected in the results. That is when I knew photography would be one of my careers of choice. I'm actually working on something else. I've been doing this other thing that I'm not fully ready to announce yet for many years. And until I achieve that, I will announce it then. But I think that's when I knew photography was something that I could do full time. Was when everything, like all the work that I'm putting in, was reflected in the results that were coming out. I think that's when I fully knew, like, it was for me. On top of that, not only did it bring me, a lot of happiness. Clearly, you can see in my work and just how I am in general when I'm making these videos. But yeah, it just brought me a lot of happiness, a lot of joy. It was my outlet at first, and it became like a full-time career profession. And it's like the best of both worlds. I feel like, what more can you ask for to find something that you love doing and something that you can also, be paid to do for. So that's when I knew. I knew when it was reflected in the results. Next. Oh, a new board game design. How are you doing, sir? I'm waiting for more videos from you. Favorite game of all time. Dwellings of Eldervale. For those of you that have been following the channel, you probably know that by now. I've raved about that game for a very long time now. Seriously, Dwellings of Eldervale is amazing. Hands down, best game. It's hard for me to find anything wrong about that game after the many. I don't think I've ever played a board game that much in general. So Dwellings of Eldervale, amazing worker placement. I love being able to choose the factions. It's going to be in my top 5 board game lists of this year. And for when I do a top 5 most played board games of the year, it's going to be on that list. And it is hard for me to foresee another game taking its place at the moment. I love that game so much. Yeah, it's insane. Okay, I have a couple of other announcements for those new people joining in towards the end here. I have a question for all of you. Feel free to chime in. I wasn't ready to announce this earlier, but I'm just gonna do it now because I don't know. I just like being transparent for the most part. For the most part, I just like being transparent to what I can actually share. So I was thinking about splitting my channel into three channels in general. Reason why is because I feel like people subscribe for specific types of content, myself included, and I totally get it. My main channel here, the one you guys are on now, will still be board games and photography. That is just cemented in stone. That's never going to change. Not only do I love it, but I feel like it's cool. It's fun. And I feel like a lot of people enjoy it as well. And it's going to stay that way. But the reason why I want to split into 3 is because as a creative, we always have to express ourselves differently. And you'll see them when I sprinkle videos on my channel that are different. Like when I talk about photography in general, when they're outside of product photography, when I talk about like lenses, or if I talk about random, like just products that I've received in, those videos usually will tank right away. And then it takes me time to gain momentum to have like board game stuff again. So if I were to post a board game video like consistently, then my channel will be doing pretty well. And then if I post something outside of that, it just tanks, which makes sense, right? Because people are subscribed for that very reason. And then if I post a board game video again, it takes time to build up that momentum again. And I feel like that's what's always kind of hurt my channel, is because I can't be niche down all the way. And I feel like this may be a solution to that. For everyone that is here for what it's here now, that's going to stay. But for those that are interested in kind of, my outlet of an outlet, then that might be able to be a separate thing. Let me know what y'all think about that. The second channel, so the first channel, like I said, board games and photography. So I'll still be talking about tips and tricks for creators and all that. All that's going to stay. It'll be trust me, it's still gonna be the same stuff. But then going on to my second channel, it would be strictly photography for like portraits, landscapes, just photography in general. So I can talk about kind of more than like the nuances of photography editing, maybe filmmaking editing, like more of the hardcore detailed stuff that's just more in depth, I guess to say. And then my third channel would just be products in general. Like for example, I wanted to talk about these lights, these RGB. Honestly, my studio right now looks like a full-on gamer setup. Does it not? Secret lab chair. I have my computer here, which I can kind of put in frame. I move the table around, right? I have my computer here, and then the RGB lighting in the back. Like, is this a streaming setup or what? But yeah, the third channel would then be like just products in general. So like I wanted to talk about just things that I just really like really cool wallets and random items that don't fit for the brand of the channel now. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about this and see, what you think about me splitting my channel to 3. Of course, please don't feel obligated to subscribe to all that. Those are just, I probably won't even announce it. Or maybe I will, I don't know yet. Maybe I'll do a video that says, I split my channel to 3. Or maybe I'll just keep posting videos on those channels and just let it happen. But yeah, I've already made videos for them. The second one is going to be Tim Chun Photography. And third one is going to be this name that I thought of called Cryo Pulse. I've already had logos and all that stuff done for them. I've already had a few videos done, but I just haven't made them public yet. But yeah, that's just an idea for now. Nothing, honestly, it's not a big deal. It's just a little creative outlet for my creative outlet. And another question from Chewy. So he asks, what type of photos do board game publishers mainly ask you for? Oh, good question. So before, I think I said like 80% of the photos that I get requested are product photography. So photos with just a simple background. But I think that has upped to like 90% because again, this makes sense on their side and on the retailer side. When you're doing product photography, when you're marketing a board game, the creative photos like you see back there, like those are my favorite type of photos that I like to take, and a lot of other photographers, like board game photographers, I know too, like that's their favorite type, and it makes sense, right? Because we're trying to be creative with it. But that doesn't mean you can't be creative with product photos, and those honestly are the ones that sell more, that are easier to market because there's more of a standard to them. Like with creative photos, you don't know what you're going to get, but people, especially for publishers, they like to see their games reflected in your work. So if you already have a portfolio of just like solid background images with very, very clean, crisp lighting, they want to see their board games in that setting already, right? So I can't offer this setting for like, for example, like Valor and Villainy, right? Like underwater Valor and Villainy, that wouldn't make any sense. Or like a lighthearted family game like Parks or anything, right? So product photography is definitely what sells the most, and it's definitely what people ask for the most. Look at my phone camera. Lewis. Yes. So when I started doing YouTube videos, okay, so I don't want you to get bogged down by that. What the camera I always recommend is the Canon M50, but you don't have to spend all that just for a YouTube video. Honestly, my dad, who actually makes YouTube videos too as well, surprise, surprise, he does have his own channel and everything. He uploads and edits everything with his phone. And he has like he has a couple thousand subscribers just doing that. So don't feel discouraged thinking that you have to have, crazy setups like this. You can even see my first couple of videos like those. Like I can't post like stuff like that nowadays. But yeah, like actually it would be fun to do like as an April Fool's joke. But yeah, don't feel discouraged by the setup that you have. I was telling everyone earlier that this was the setup that I had initially, which was a Canon 80D and the 35mm f2.0. This was my go-to lens for, go-to setup for 2 years, on YouTube and for client videos as well. So if you have, a choice to set up, if you have a chance to like save up for camera setups, then yeah, of course, have something in mind. Because I always like to set gear goals because it keeps me motivated. It's like, okay, I need to work towards something. This was a gift from my parents initially, but then everything else that I have now stemmed from being able to work with this. And honestly, it's better. Like I feel like it is so much better to start with nothing than to start with something fancy, because you learn how to troubleshoot. That is the key thing that I always advocate, not only in photography, but in things I used to teach before. I used to teach science and stuff before. When you have nothing at all, you really go through all the gears and all the troubleshooting and everything that is going to make you a much, much better photographer, filmmaker, and all that. So do not feel bogged down by having to think that you need a crazy, camera setup like that I have now. Your phone, trust me, especially nowadays with the iPhone 12, 15,000 plus, whatever it is now, it shoots 4K. Every camera nowadays shoots 4K. So you can do it. I believe in you. Shoot with your camera only and see what you can do with it. Because sometimes you might not know if YouTube is like your thing. Like I encourage everyone to do it if it's something that it's if that you're looking into. Like just try making a video. You don't have to make it go public, but just try making that effort in making a video. Make the effort in making a video. Just put in effort in making a video and see what it's like. Because to watch videos and stuff, you don't realize all the little behind the scenes things that go on into it, and you don't feel that. Just like any other profession, right? You don't really see what goes on behind the scenes until you do it. When you make a YouTube video, see what goes into it and see if that's something that you enjoy and that you like. Because sometimes a phone is just better for some people. Like my dad, for instance, it's better for him. Like I got him a camera, but he just ends up using his phone because it's just so much easier, so much more convenient. You have it with you all the time. You can just film whenever, and taking photos and videos is pretty much instantaneous. So it's very, very user friendly. Definitely recommend just using your phone for that. Josh asks, what was the board game that started it all? Ooh, the board game that started it all would have to be I feel like I might have answered this question a couple of times, but I feel my answer might be changing here and there, because the more I think about it, the more I realize it wasn't just one board game. It might have been like a combination of a few, but the one that sticks out instantly was Archmage. I did a review about that. That's the very first board game tutorial that I posted on my channel. One of the reasons why I started doing board game tutorials to begin with was because there was no video for it, no video tutorials for games, for certain games that I had back then. That either Rodney or a bunch of other big YouTubers didn't make at the time. So I didn't want to just read through the manual. I kind of just wanted to watch it. So I kind of made videos just to see how it was like, just like exactly what I was telling Lewis a second ago. You kind of just make videos to see what it's like. I didn't know I was going to do this, all the time. But it was fun. But Archmage definitely was the one that started out in terms of the video tutorial side. And then in terms of photography, it was Spirits of the Forest. I'm actually going to make a full-on video about that moment of when I took the very first photo for a really, really big announcement that I'm going to talk about on the channel. My photos got posted on somewhere pretty big and pretty cool, so I'm excited to talk about that in an upcoming video. But I'm gonna make a whole story about that, so it's not just a quick little announcement. I want some substance to it, But okay, we are going to wrap up today's stream. A couple of other things to go over. The last question that I have so far, unless you guys have any other questions for me, I have one other question from Chewy, which is, do you usually plan product photos beforehand with sketches or notes, or go with the flow? Oh, yeah, I never sketch or plan anything at all, which is terrible. If I had, like, I wouldn't recommend that at all. Actually, I feel like if I were to teach how to plan, I would show you guys how to plan. But me myself, I don't plan or sketch at all. It's just how my process goes. So yeah, I definitely don't sketch anything, but I will say that if I had like a shoot before, oh, actually, no, I did. I take that back. There was one time I did sketch, and that was for rival restaurants. So this one I filmed at their house. That one I sketched full on. So if it's like a professional client shoot where you're on site, on set for location, then you have to have a plan. There's no way you're going to remember everything. And even if you try to kind of just go with the flow with it, it's not going to be as organized. And the worst thing you can do is to come home realizing that you didn't get a certain type of shot. So I definitely recommend planning, and I can definitely do a video about how you can plan shots for different client videos if that's something that you all want to see in the future as well. But yeah, one thing I like to do, for example, like for product photos, I just mess around with the composition. So I'm just kind of there fiddling around. I usually put one thing in the center, and then I will add in different accents, and I take and remove pieces, and I just play around with it the entire time. That's my really messy process for taking photos, and videos are exact same way. You will see that in tomorrow's epic cinematic showcase. Tomorrow's Unsettled Cinematic Showcase, man, the cleanup for it was insane. But yeah, I feel like the tomorrow's video will explain the planning, the kind of chaotic thing that goes on behind that. Yeah, the M50 is a solid camera. M50 or the 80D, those are my two cameras that I always recommend. It always depends on what you're looking for. But nowadays, definitely look into mirrorless. I feel like DSLRs, like these will always be amazing, but they will be phased out because Canon actually announced that they're not making, like I'm pretty sure they did, they announced that they're not making EF lenses anymore, and they're going to stop doing support on this. So if you're looking to buying a new camera, definitely look into mirrorless lenses, mirrorless cameras. Look at lenses first and then figure out the camera body after. Ivan asks, what was the expected income when starting photography? That's an interesting, I think it depends on the phase of where you're at. So when I started, I was expecting it to be maybe a couple $100, $200, but you know, people for weddings and stuff charge up to $3 to $4K for a weekend. But again, it sounds like a lot, but there's just so much more that goes into it. So I feel like a lot of photographers, despite like that lump sum that you see for only a day or two, like for example, I get this once in a while saying like, oh, you know, a couple $100 for a 1 hour shoot. But, you know, like you have to consider the planning. You have to consider all the prep work. You have to consider all of the gear that we have to have in order for us to perform the best that we can at that time. All the behind the scenes stuff, like for example, contracts that I mentioned earlier, marketing, and everything that's involved in that, I think ends up making like less than minimum wage. So that was my expected income at first. Well, I expected to make a couple more than just a few hundred, but now that I'm kind of solidified in both, you know, photography of all kinds of fields, it's getting better. Okay, so a couple of other quick announcements. Let's see here. You're getting next. I just wanted to tell you all about the next camera, or not next camera, but next thing that I have in mind for what I want to get next, and that is the Canon RF 28-70. I really want that lens, but that is a very expensive lens. That is a $3,000 lens. So yeah, but it's going to save a lot of time. I feel like that lens is a true game changer. If you haven't heard about that one, briefly, the 28-70 is a zoom lens, so you can zoom between different distances. Before, I only used to shoot prime, and the reason why is because primes, they have very, very sharp, crisp images. The differences between primes and zoom lenses before were like night and day, but that line is getting blurred very, very fast with the new Canon RF mirrorless lenses. So before, also another benefit for shooting primes is that they also go down very, very low light. So this one can shoot down to 2.0, and typically you don't see like a f-stop of 2.0 in zoom lenses. Usually it's around like 2.8 at the lowest. But this next lens, not only is it a zoom lens, but it shoots at f2.0, and those images I can't even tell if it's prime or zoom. That's when I knew I need to have this lens, and also it's going to save me a lot of time too. I just wish it was image stabilized, for video as well. But that, oh my god, I got water everywhere. That is the next thing I have in mind. Thank you everyone for joining today's stream. That's it for today. I'm so glad to have you all here. I'm going to leave this public on my channel later on so you can see all the links I leave down below to all of the other creators. And also, my dad has a YouTube channel too. You can check it out. For Lewis that asked earlier about the camera setup, in case you want to see how he does it. He's the one who got me into videography to begin with. So I will leave links to his channel and all the creators I mentioned down below. Again, for those that are joining last minute, Unsettled, it's coming tomorrow. Do not miss it. Okay, it's going to be a photo contest. The Unsettled, I'm giving away, or we are giving away. Let me grab the box. Actually, I don't know whether it is. No, but we're giving away the base game of Unsettled along with all the expansions in a photo contest. It's going to be an epic giveaway tomorrow. And last announcement is, let me know what you think about splitting channels. Yes, into 3. I'm interested in your thoughts about that. And lastly, Marvel Champions Saturday. That one's going to be an epic review too. So back-to-back videos today. It was a fun live stream. Thank you all so much for being here. And I will see you all later. That was fun. Bye. See you all later.